My name is Brian, and Derek Van Orden doesn't just go toe-to-toe with Stephen A. Smith. He gives him a history lesson that Stephen A. is probably going to remember for the rest of his life. This is how the left works in America. Let's dive in.
We can get left and right and all of that stuff from a political
Stephen
perspective.
A.
But trained officers know how to detain somebody. I don't want to suggest shooting out the tires or something specific, like I know any better than them. I'm just saying, was there not a way for the woman to walk away with her life, for crying out loud? That's what I'm asking you, sir.
I'm not going to second guess these guys on the ground. That leads to nothing but hardship across the board. And I am very sympathetic. I do not celebrate the death of any American citizen ever.
Nope.
I don't condone political violence. This appears to be an act of political violence. I just don't, man. Listen, I love my fellow Americans. I fought for this country and for you and for the rest of your listeners.
Yes, you did.
Viewers. I did. And so right now, what we're going to do is allow this process to play out. But it sure as heck looks like this woman was trying to run over a federal officer when he was conducting officially sanctioned operations, and that is unlawful. That is actually it meets the definition of domestic terrorism.
My last question on this subject, and it's really not a question about this subject per se, but it's more along the lines of what you said when you talked about the left and their rhetoric and what have you. One of the things that we've been talking about over the last several months as it pertains to the rhetoric on both sides of the aisle was that needed to be dialed back. We've heard Republicans and Democrats alike saying that this is something that needed to transpire. Considering what you just said in terms of the left and their rhetoric and how that directly impacted what transpired today, one could argue or one could ask, does that really help the situation? Does it really help? What do you say to that?
This is what I say to that. The most powerful ministry, and I want to be crystal clear. I'm not calling my Democrat colleagues Nazis. I am not. I'm going to have to run upstairs about here real quick. But this is what I'm saying. The most powerful ministry in Nazi Germany was the Ministry of Truth and Propaganda. That was run by a guy named Joseph Goebbels. To my knowledge, Joseph Goebbels never pulled a trigger and killed anybody, but he's responsible for the deaths of millions of people, including 6.5 million Jews. Why? Because when the Nazis took power, they took over all the newspapers, they took over all of the radio stations, and they actually had their own film studio. And they pushed out a consistent message over all mediums that were available at the time. And that led to the Holocaust. So propaganda works. And if you look at, I'm not talking about you, my brother, but you look at the legacy media and radio stations, Hollywood stars, the movies, television shows, cable, they're putting out the constant message that these ICE agents are the American Gestapo. They're saying that President Trump was...
And that's crazy. I keep saying that, but when Obama did it, Obama had like 56 people passed away. Under Obama, 56 Americans under Obama have passed away. Nobody ain't saying nothing about that. Under the rug. Swept under the rug. That's crazy. You know, and Tom Homan's the same guy that Trump had. I mean, Obama had Tom Homan as well. Both presidents had the same guy to take care of the border. And you got Kamala Harris that's supposed to take care of the border. We would have had this problem. We would not have this problem if Kamala Harris had took care of this, period.
Literally Hitler, that he was going to lock up LGBTQ folks into concentration camps, that he was going to destroy democracy. And he got shot in the head because of that. If you think about what are the commonalities between a 19-year-old Pennsylvanian and a 56-year-old Hawaiian, there's two things. Both of them tried to kill the president of the United States. And the other thing is that they both, for over a decade, have been hearing that Donald Trump was literally a Nazi. So this messaging has got to stop. And I do not equivocate, and nor should you, sir. If you look at the volume, the sheer volume of what the left puts out versus what some people on the far right put out, there's absolutely no comparison. 90+% of all journalists identify as Democrats. It's the same percentage for college professors. They identify as Democrats. And so when you have college professors teaching children journalism, they're not teaching them journalism, they're teaching them activism. When you have, I went to law school at 50.
That part.
Went to law school at 50, finished my first year, and then I decided to write law, so I got elected to Congress. Okay. But the majority of my professors in law school were leftists. They were. And so when you take over the schools of journalism, you take over the schools of law, you're going to have an issue. And the issue is this. We have folks on the left that are pushing an agenda that is not good for America. It simply is not. And these
America
instances,
first.
Charlie Kirk getting assassinated, what did that young man hear for an extended period of time?
At least that.
Nothing but
Come
horrible
on.
things about Charlie Kirk, which turned out to be lies. Then I mentioned the guys that try to assassinate President Trump. What did they hear? A bunch of lies about President Trump. No one's locking up LGBTQ people. That's just silly. And, is he a dictator? No, he's not. Is he a king? No, he's not. But if you constantly put out this message that she's a 37-year-old suburban woman from Minneapolis, the city that I happen to have been born in, decided to go on a Wednesday morning and drive her car around in a manner that appears to be reckless and using it as a weapon against federal agents. How did that happen?
She should have stayed at home.
How did that happen? It
Just
happened
stay at
because she's
home.
heard over and over and over and over again through every available form of media that Donald Trump is a Nazi and that these ICE
Write a
agents
letter or
are
something.
American Gestapo. That's what's got to
But
stop.
stay at home.
What a perfect summation of what's actually been happening in our entire political landscape. I'm not talking about just recent events. I am talking about the difference between the two political parties right now. Okay? And if you want to know the difference, it's rather simple. There's a side that tries to tell the truth. Okay? And we don't always do it. All right? Trump gets things wrong. I get things wrong. Republicans get things wrong. But we care about the truth.
Right.
The podcast sphere, for the most part, cares about the truth. The Sean Ryan Show, Joe Rogan, all these podcasters care about the truth. Even Tucker Carlson, when he gets things wrong, he'll admit it too. Compare that to the other side of America's politics right now, with the mainstream media running with a story that turns out is not the truth. We just saw like an hour ago of just starting to film this, and it's starting to shoot up all over Twitter. It's all over my Facebook right now. We're starting to see the full body camera of what happened between Renee Good and the ICE agents who were basically not just in the neighborhood, they were trying to get her out of there. If you're a homeowner here in America, you need to listen to this. The FBI has been warning about a rise in something called title theft, and your equity is the target. Here's how it works. And it gets worse with the new footage that just got put out. And yet, Democrat politicians have refused to admit that, yeah, Renee Good wasn't just at the wrong place at the wrong time. She was doing the wrong thing with the wrong place with the vehicle at the worst possible time. There's something called a lie by omission.
Should never happen.
And that's what's been happening with the mainstream media, with the left stream media, with the legacy media. We keep seeing it over and over and over because they're leaving out the one kernel of truth that holds up the rest of the house of cards. There's a great joke from one of the old Simpsons episodes, I think Hurricane Nettie, where I wouldn't take down that poster. It's a load-bearing poster instead of a load-bearing wall. And if you take down that one kernel in this house of cards, the whole thing collapses. The narrative does that every single time. And yet, instead of admitting that they were wrong, they're going to continue to push out the narrative that this woman is a martyr for a cause. That is exactly why Derek Van Orden here brought up Goebbels, okay? The head of propaganda for Germany in the 30s and 40s. The man was a political and propaganda genius. And guess who took his propaganda to heart? It is the exact same rail. Sorry, it is on the exact same rail line, just on the other side of the rail from communist-style propaganda that Mao, Lenin, Stalin, who else? Pol Pot used it. Maduro has been trying to use it. Didn't work out too well for him now, did it? And then, of course, Fidel Castro tried to use it. Hugo Chavez used it. And it has done no one any favors because propaganda is the exact opposite of truth. Because truth is unvarnished. It is often ugly. And yet, the left stream media, and not Stephen A. Smith here. I actually need to give some props to Stephen A. Smith. I'll do that in a minute. But the left stream media would rather give you the propaganda because their people want to believe it. The pipeline that creates people like Renee Good, excuse me, the pipeline that creates people like Renee Good occurs when someone has had some devastating loss. She lost her husband, I believe, about 6 or 7 years ago. And the only people willing to back her up were these fringe people out on the internet, out on Reddit, Blue Sky, Tumblr, and what used to be a left-wing Twitter, all feeding her the same information that's echoed, or at least starts its echo, from the left stream media, and it just bounces and reverberates off the walls until you hear exactly what you want to hear. You hear the echo off the canyon and cavern walls that isn't the truth. It's like playing an extra game of telephone and then passing off what you heard as reality.
Not good.
This is why the truth must be guarded, and we're starting to realize that we are not just in a battle between Republican and Democrat. We're in a battle against people who want to tell the truth that is typically on our side. I try my best to tell the truth every single time. Granted, I have to admit to y'all, I am a very good liar. I can keep track of stuff like that, okay? If I was in a house in Harry Potter, I would be in House Slytherin. But I try to avoid that as much as I can because the truth is authentic, it's real, and I value that more than any kind of manipulation because I'm not getting.
That's my podcast about, just getting the truth out there. Facts over feelings. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I make sure I come to you guys or anybody, I apologize. You know, if you were a Trump supporter or not, hey, no problem with me. They're here to share with you guys, learn from me, can learn from you. That's all it's about, learning from each other. Because nobody is right or wrong.
Anything out of manipulating people here when you can easily put my words.
Man, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. I'm Red and Rave. You know, this podcast show is about Red and Rave. You know what I mean.
Against a Google search and see what's true. I lose if I play that game incorrectly. But the mainstream media wins because there's something different in the way Democrats think. And that's why Stephen A. Smith is a breath of fresh air. The reason I'm going to be so positive towards him is because he's curious. He cares about the truth. He might get a whole lot of sports takes wrong, but he keeps trying to get better. He works hard. He cares about reality. This man is eyeing a presidential run, and the Democrats don't like it because he's more moderate and he cares about the truth. And that's why Derek Van Orden is just giving what he sees as the unvarnished truth. And Stephen A. Smith is not pushing back. He is trying to understand a position that he doesn't fully grasp. But it's because that he lives in that mainstream media bubble, and he's reaching out past that bubble, and he's starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, people on the other side of the aisle, the Republican Party, the MAGA movement, people like Derek Van Orden are indeed telling the truth about this story. And now from the extra footage that you're probably going to see, either before this video or after this video, either way, when it comes to the Renee Good story, you're going to see that the truth does not mirror what the mainstream media keeps pushing out through its propaganda arms. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. My name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like.
Same thing here. Like and subscribe. Thanks for joining in. Just want to share that guys with you right quick. Name is Deontay. Thank you guys.